Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's April 25th, 2022, and today I thought I'd give you another update on how the sweet potatoes are growing. Now, we've been growing sweet potatoes now for years, and over the last 4 or 5 years, I started creating a video series, a playlist, if you will, on YouTube so that you can follow our progress over time as far as starting sweet potatoes indoors. So this really only applies to people in cold, temperate climates. We live in Oswego, New York. Our last frost date was yesterday, but we still have probably 30 more days of the potential of another heavy frost. So we don't get our plants in the ground for quite some time unless it's a really early season crop, but certainly nothing like sweet potatoes. They aren't going to go into the ground until after Memorial Day. So I've been making these videos trying with the goal of not just sharing what we're learning along the way, but also trying to reduce the amount of time and energy that I'm actually putting into getting the sweet potato slips, which are what we're going to plant in the ground. The better that the slips are rooted, the greater the chance that we're going to have sweet potatoes being produced. So in the video series, we go through when I first started growing sweet potatoes using toothpicks and quart jars, that sort of thing. Progressing through, I made a video on growing in perlite, and then growing in trays with a little bit of water in them. But each year, what we've tried to do is reduce the amount of time that I have to visit the sweet potatoes and intervene in some way, water them, clean them, or whatever. And now we've got it down to a pretty good system where we started off with several sweet potatoes at the beginning of this winter, and what we ended up doing was finding that we had some of them were bruised from my mishandling when I harvested them. They were still good for eating and all, but those developed into soft spots as well. And so we directly planted them into a soilless mixture, and you can go back and look at those videos as well. But from one sweet potato, we ended up getting 2 trays, 2 flats of sweet potato vines, and then the last video I think I made of cutting those vines and extending the extensions into 2 more. So right now we have 4 flats, and I'm going to end up cutting those either today or tomorrow, but I wanted to show you where we're at this point, because as we plant those vines, as we lay those vines down in the soil, put a little bit of soil over the internodal area, the places between where the leaves come up, because where the leaves are coming up, roots will get sent down, and that'll create another sweet potato slip. In a sense, that's a place where the sweet potatoes will be produced in the future. So we've gone from growing sweet potato slips in perlite and water, taking some extra time and all, to really just having to visit them maybe every 3 days, add a little bit of water to the tray, and every couple of weeks cutting the vines and laying the vines down in some new soilless mixture, and then and wetting that soil down about every 3 days, and that's about it so far. So what we'll do is we'll go down, I'll take my GoPro camera down, and we'll take a look at the vines where they're at now before I go ahead and cut them for the next step and all. So so here we go. Okay, we're down here in our den area and all, and we're going to show you the sweet potatoes. But these microgreens up here, these are broccoli microgreens I just uncovered this morning. So they're all pale color. These ones here were uncovered 2 or 3 days ago, or 2 days ago. And they're greening up, and they'll shoot up, and those are our microgreens. So these are just 4-tube fluorescent fixtures that are set up above each one of these trays. And these are standard flats with a porous tray that fits inside of a non-porous tray, and then inside of a structure. So the soilless mixture is doing pretty well. So let's come down here. So this was the initial tray. I had 2 trays initially, and unfortunately the as I mentioned, some of the sweet potatoes got soft. So I took those all out. This is the one sweet potato that produced slips, and I let them grow out. And once they grew out, what I ended up doing was laying down the vines into the soil. This sweet potato here has always remained firm. It could be sending up some shoots now, but I did take one of the vines, and you may be able to see back here the vine that I wrapped around. So I took one of the vines and wrapped it around, and this may either be coming up from this sweet potato or it may not. It may all be coming from this one potato. So the vines came out from here. They got really long, just like all these vines are doing right here, right now. And what I ended up doing was I laid the other tray right next to it, not this tray, but it was this tray right here. So this is a tray that was leaning right down here, or actually both trays were up here initially. And what I ended up doing was cutting off the vines after the vines were laid in the tray for a couple of weeks. And then after I cut those vines, I separated them and put one tray on one shelf, one tray on the other shelf, and I took the vines and I extended them over into an empty tray. And you can see the roots are growing all throughout this whole area here, and we'll get new shoots that start to come up next. So, and in some places we put little rocks down, and you can see the roots there underneath the rocks. All of these places, so these are nodes right here, and these nodes will send up new shoots, but they'll also send down roots in each one of these sections. So by making sure that this part is buried underneath the soil surface, and this part is touching the soil surface, roots will go down from this spot and a new shoot will come up from this location. And you can see little shoots starting to come up here, and if we get these down to the soil surface, they will send down roots, and that will be like another slip. So each one of these could be cut after they've rooted thoroughly and a new shoot has come up, then that will produce sweet potatoes. Each one of these will. So what I'll do next is, and you can see here's one of the vines here, and it got down into here. What I'll end up doing is cutting this off and cutting these ones here off, and there's two more down there I'll cut off, and the same thing down in here. So what I'm going to do is isolate these two trays from one another and take the vines and extend these out into another tray. So it's a process of, as the sweet potato continues to grow and the vine roots in the additional trays, I sever them after they've rooted so that they can continue to grow. They will get their nutrients from the soilless mixture that's here, and they'll start to send up these new little shoots just like this one right here. And that will root when I lay this down in the next tray. The thing we've got to do now is find a place that we can put these into. So what we'll end up doing is making some room over in the coop area. Now that it's starting to get warmer, the coop never freezes, but it's warm enough that things can actually work out pretty well. So these vines all have a chance at this point, because it's going to be a month before we get to put these into the soil. So we can get more sweet potato plants by rooting the vines and sectioning the vines. And then even if the deer get to them, we almost always have plenty of extra vines in the future. And Hank's playing with a jug over there. He's just a handsome boy. So that's it with the sweet potato vines, the progress that we're making at this point. And you know, there'll be some of the soilless mixtures. I put soil on top of this, and it just works out just fine. So this is the least amount of effort I have to put into growing sweet potatoes at this point, and it's working out so well. So we'll make another progress report probably in a couple of weeks to see where we're at that point, but I just wanted to give you an update at this point. So if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. I always appreciate everybody's feedback. If you're doing interesting things with your sweet potatoes, or if you live in a warm climate, or if you just like sticking toothpicks in them and putting them in water, I think that's great to share as well. this works out pretty well, pretty low intensive effort on my part. It does take some time to separate them, and takes up some space as well, but people have windowsills. Thanks so much for watching, folks, and have a super fantastic day. Bye-bye now.